So many good options.
They're all so different.
From caves to massive desert landscapes and cactuses and everything like that. So good.
Cactuses. See? They're just throwing out cactuses all over.
This is the Exploring the National Parks podcast with Dirt in My Shoes. My name is Ash, and I'm a former park ranger and the founder of Dirt in My Shoes. I think that the parks are best seen from the trail, and I'm here to make national park trip planning easy.
And I'm John. I carry the kids on the trails, I tell stories, and notice all the things that Ash doesn't care about much, like birds.
Join us as we show you around America's spectacular national parks.
We're sharing our favorite places, fun facts, adventures, and misadventures.
And we'll even throw in a little trip planning.
Let's start exploring.
So I was today years old when I found out that you guys can leave us comments on Spotify.
Who knew that was a thing?
I love that statement. I was today years old. I feel like that's only come around like the last 4 or 5 years.
I know, but I was like, I don't know, because I was looking through some podcast stuff and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a whole bunch of comments in here that I've never seen before. So I apologize I'm answering comments from 2 years ago. Better late than never.
Oh my gosh, because we knew you could leave reviews on Apple. But we didn't know you could do certain things on Spotify.
No, I had no idea there were comments on Spotify. So thanks to all of you who are leaving us comments. There are just some really good ones. People were like, tell John that this episode was so funny, blah, 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 And I'm like, I'm sorry I ignored that for 2 years. I apologize.
Ash was just really mad that you didn't mention that she was funny.
Nobody ever mentions that I'm funny.
Ash should come up with more Lord of the Rings content.
No. That would be a disaster.
I'm going to go in and create a bunch of dummy accounts and make some comments to try to push Ash towards more nerdy content.
Somebody did say that they feel like we need more Lord of the Rings content from you.
Which, can you ever get enough? So that statement is always true, regardless to how much Lord of the Rings content there is. There can always be more.
Well, sure. As I stare at him blank face, is that in the movie? I don't remember that part.
That's in the books. But the Silmarillion.
Yeah. John got the huge, full anthology of Lord of the Rings with author pictures for Christmas this year.
It was one of the greatest presents I've ever received. It brought me 2-man tears.
And the text in the book, it's huge. It's 6 inches thick, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the text, you need a magnifying glass to read it.
I know. I showed my sons were looking at it and they were because they've been talking about a book with no pictures recently. I don't know what
it's the BJ Novak. It's a little kid's book, the book with no pictures. They love it. They think it's so funny.
And they've just been laughing about that the last few days. And then I showed them the Lord of the Rings book that I got for Christmas. And they were just like, this really is a book with no pictures.
But it has pictures.
But it does have some.
Because it includes Tolkien's initial drawings, which is why it costs so much money, probably.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So good. Thank you, Ash.
I'm wondering, in what world are you actually going to read that many words?
This world.
John is not a reader.
But I will read J.R.R. Tolkien.
Have you read it? You've read it before, right?
I have, yes, but it has been a very long time. Honestly, the movies are so good that sometimes it's hard to dive back into the books a little bit because the first portion of the first third at least of the Fellowship of the Ring is so dense.
You said it's all in the Shire still.
Yeah.
Right? They don't even leave.
What people don't realize from the movies is that Frodo's 50 years old. And that, you don't even get to Bree until you've read 150 pages, it seems like. And you're like, oh my gosh, I know so much about this universe, but the story hasn't moved that far forward. It's after that when things really start to move.
Interesting.
So if you start The Lord of the Rings, I hear it's kind of I have never finished the series Parks and Rec because we have never finished the first season.
So many people tell me, they're like, you would love Parks and Rec. You worked for the Park Service. That was you.
Mm-hmm.
And I started and I'm just I don't think this is funny.
I know.
I don't enjoy this.
And people always tell us you have to start with like the second
yeah,
season.
you have to start with the second. And I was like, but then I won't know who anybody is.
I know.
I feel like I have to get through the first, and it's just torturous.
Yeah. So this Parks and Rec and Lord of the Rings disclaimer is push through the first season of Parks and Rec, and then push through the first 100 and something pages of Fellowship of the Ring, and then you'll be where you need to be.
Somebody convince me to watch Parks and Rec again. It's been a few years since I've tried.
Right.
Comment. Send me some messages if you think it's worth my time to do that. I need a push back into it, I think.
Yeah.
So anyway, yes. Sorry about your Spotify comments, everyone. I will now try to answer those in a more timely manner now that I know they actually exist.
Right.
So let's jump into our episode for today.
Or we could talk about more Lord of the Rings content.
Well, we are taking you on a journey.
We sure are.
And this is a journey that we have taken many a time.
Oh, it's
in
one of my
some
favorite.
way, shape, or form.
I love this trip.
It's also a question that I get asked all the time. People are always like, where should we go for spring break if we want to go to a national park? And I'm like, let me tell you what we do, because it is a beautiful road trip.
Oh, yeah. It's
Some
so
of my
fun.
finest work.
And especially today, today's going to be sort of Western themed in a little bit. We're going to talk about some movies, kind of like we did with some of our other I think our Utah road trip one, we covered a whole lot of movie stuff because they make so many movies in Utah. But along this road trip, there are some really fun things that I've noticed, and it's just really cool. But this landscape is so awesome in so many ways, and it's so Western. So especially where you start, it's just classically West.
Very nice, John. Thank you. I want to jump into some nitty gritty because I'm just going to come clean with this. I wrote this road trip. John did not write this road trip. So he will accentuate with his Western themes.
Yes.
But I've got some stuff I need to say.
I'll poke in every once in a while then, I guess.
So this spring break road trip itinerary, like I said, is a itinerary that we follow pretty often. We're in this area pretty much every year in one way, shape, or form. However, I wrote this particular road trip schedule. It's 8 days.
Mm-hmm.
That's as short as I could get it without feeling like I was just like very sadly cutting stuff out.
Yes.
But you can make it 7 days. So I know a lot of people, if they're going for spring break, they only have 7 days, right? And so I got you. I will show you how to cut it into 7 days, but it's better done in 8.
Right.
And if you have more time, we went 14 days last year.
Yeah.
On this road trip.
It was amazing because you have to cover a fair amount of distance.
But we didn't fly in. We drove from Utah. So we went through some of the Utah parks and we went through some of the northern Arizona stuff on our way down to this area where this, the bulk of this road trip is. Mm-hmm. So just, if you can make it longer, sure. Like there's tons of cool stuff you can do around here.
Right.
But I cut it into 8 days for you, for spring break specifically. This road trip starts in Tucson, Arizona. You're going to fly into Tucson and rent a car and start from here. If you can't do 8 days, then don't fly into Tucson. That's the part you'll cut out is the Tucson stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you'll want to fly into either like Albuquerque or El Paso would kind of be better for making it into 7 days instead of 8.
Right.
It's covering 1,500 miles.
Yeah, a lot of ground here.
So much driving and not really anything in between. Do you know what I mean? Like we're trekking all the way down to Big Bend.
Yeah.
We're going all the way to the Rio Grande in Texas.
Yes.
And there's nothing for like 8 hours of that drive.
It's a little different from, say, like the winter road trip we did not too long ago.
Or the Utah road trip one. Yeah.
There's always like lots of little places to stop in and have interesting experiences. But this one, there are a few of those, but it's a lot further and far between.
It is. Everything's so spread out on this one. And so it's just like you have just big chunks of driving.
Yeah.
And that's just how it has to be. Mm-hmm. Because I cannot bring the bottom of Texas closer to New Mexico.
Yeah.
You just got to drive it.
It's so true.
So 1,500 miles. the key with this road trip, and you'll see this with my schedule, is that we are trying to maximize our time in the parks during sunrise and sunset.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to warm weather parks.
Right.
And you're going to parks that can be pretty harsh, especially in the middle of the day, both temperature-wise and like photography-wise.
Right.
You're not going to get the good pictures in the middle of the day when the sun's just like blinding off the rocks and washing everything out.
Right. That was one of my favorite parts of this road trip, actually, was getting to enjoy the early morning hours and the late evening hours in the parks.
Yeah, and then we drive. We drive those huge chunks of time in the middle of the day.
Right.
See how smart I am?
Like, really? Who else is thinking about this stuff?
I know. It was great. All you had to do was make sure you get up early enough in the morning. And the day was just perfect.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it.
I will say, with younger kids, those early mornings, later evenings can get a little bit rough.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, please sleep.
And my parents, like whenever we would take road trips when I was a kid, they would drive through the night.
Yeah.
In order so that they didn't have to deal with us during the day. But if you can figure out how to like keep your kids entertained during the drives, man, this is amazing.
Or help them sleep.
Yes.
Have them sleep while you drive so you can stay out later for sunset.
I know.
Or something. Or there are certain places where the sunrise or the sunset, you don't have to.
Right.
Or you could go before sunset and just enjoy golden hour and then still get them to bed at a good time. So,
exactly.
but just know that that's different than a lot of my other road trips and how I visit other parks is like usually I'm not doing a full day in the park. I'm like sunset and sunrise,
Mm-hmm.
Half day here, half day here.
and then in the middle of the day I'm in my car with the air conditioning.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's true.
okay, so let's jump in. We have our day one. If you fly into Tucson, so again, remember, this is the 8 days. If you have to do 7, skip this part. But day one, we're flying into Tucson, and then you're going to Saguaro West.
Mm-hmm.
Saguaro National Park is broken up into 2 different sections. So you've got the west side and the east side with the city of Tucson in the middle.
It's super weird.
It is. It's pretty funky. So you're going to have to break those sections up anyway because they're separated by like an hour drive.
Mm-hmm.
Tucson is the worst because there's like no direct way to get anywhere. And so to get from the west to the east, it takes forever.
Yeah.
Because you're just like driving all these weird roads and stuff. So anyway, so we're flying into Tucson. We're going to Saguaro West. And Saguaro West is my favorite part of Saguaro to be in for the sunset.
Mm-hmm.
The sun is setting on that side and it glows. It just makes all of the cacti just have this golden hue.
Oh, it's
this
amazing.
golden light.
Yeah.
And then you just get really beautiful sunsets behind the cacti, behind the landscape. That's my favorite time to be in Saguaro.
Yeah. What's so cool too at this time of year is a lot of the cactuses are kind of blooming at this point. And it's not just the saguaro cactuses.
Well, the saguaro cacti don't bloom until like May.
Right.
And we're not doing this in May. May in Tucson is crazy.
Right.
Don't do that.
Yes.
Unless you really want to see the blooms, which I do, but I just like haven't brought myself to being willing to be there in those temps.
Right.
But the cholla cactus and the barrel cactus, like those ones, the ocotillos, like those are all blooming usually in March.
Yeah. And this section of the park, kind of right around the visitor center, they have a few different trails, but it really highlights that this is like a desert garden in a lot of ways. You have all of these amazing different varieties of cacti that are all kind of, especially in the evening light, that are just so beautiful. Everything is so gorgeous, and it's not just the saguaros. It's not, you have just this amazing variety you didn't even know existed until you get here and you're walking through with the perfect lighting. The evening here is magical. It truly is magical.
Our best photos of sunset in Saguaro are from the west side.
Mm-hmm.
So I highly recommend that. And then you're staying in Tucson that night, leading into day 2, which is another half day in Saguaro, but this time we're on the east side,
Mm-hmm.
the east district of Saguaro National Park. And this one is really nice at sunrise. I've actually been out at sunrise on this side quite a few times.
Mm-hmm.
There's mountains. It's more mountainous behind all this cactus landscape
Mm-hmm.
that's like right in front of you. So you get the big mountains and those ones will start to glow in the sunrise. And it's really pretty.
It's really cool.
But this side of the park, it does have some hiking, but mostly we just like to do the scenic drive through here, maybe make some stops as we go. But the scenic drive on this side is gorgeous. It's fantastic.
Definitely.
So I like the scenic drive on East better than the ones on West, but I like the hiking on West better.
Yeah, it's
so you
true.
got to do both, but just break it up.
I feel like the mountains are bigger on East, like Giant Mountain, but the mountains on West are like super iconic. It's so iconic that they filmed lots of movies there.
In the West?
Yes.
Okay.
So they filmed some movies in the West side, but also right outside of the park boundary, there's actually a film studio.
Yes, that's true.
Old Tucson is what they call it. It's the Old Tucson Film Studio, and they've filmed over 500 movies there.
Yeah.
And so many of them, they're just so cool. Things like Tombstone with Val Kilmer and Kurt Russell. You've got Shootout at the OK Corral. I was going through it, and two of my favorites. You have all these Western movies, but you also have Reading Rainbow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
At Old Tucson.
Yep.
Huh.
And in Saguaro West. So I'm kind of mixing them both a little bit because you got the same mountains in the background. And a lot of the cacti is very diverse landscape of cacti. I keep saying cactuses. I don't know why cactus. I know that cacti is the correct plural, but cactuses just feels so good.
Cacti sounds very according to my calculations.
Yes. Well, the genome and
I'm saying I'm working really hard to say cacti, and John's just throwing out cactuses everywhere.
I know. But John Wayne did a whole bunch of stuff there. Rio Bravo, Big Jake, El Dorado. They were all filmed at Old Tucson, and you can kind of tour through there. But one movie in particular that has been part of our family recently that was filmed, part of it in Old Tucson, was The Three Amigos. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
There's this little village of Santa Poco where Martin Short and Steve Martin and, oh gosh, Chevy Chase, and they're saving this little Mexican town from El Guapo, and it's just the greatest. There's so many good things there, but yes, the village of Santa Poco is Old Tucson, which you can see and tour right near the West Saguaro National Park section.
You could spend more time in Saguaro than just what this is.
Right.
And I forgot to put this on the disclaimer because it's like, if you only have 7 or 8 days because you're trying to go over spring break, I'm trying to keep it like as short as you can while still seeing all these places. But you absolutely could spend another day or two here.
Right.
So don't by any means just be like, well, she said only to spend a half a day here and a half a day there. That's only if you're on a very limited time frame.
Right, because Tucson also has that amazing aerospace museum.
Yeah, and which we really like to do. And then there's the the name is leaving me, but the wildlife museum.
Oh, the desert.
What's it called?
The Desert Life.
Yes, I have it on Dirt in My Shoes. I can't remember what the name is, but yeah, so that's there too. And then you have the Sonoran hot dogs that you have to get while you're in Tucson, and it's a cool place.
Yeah.
So by no means just a half a day here, half a day there is that ideal, but it's enough.
Right.
It's enough for you to see the good stuff. So speaking of movies, though, we are heading out of Tucson to our next national park, which is going to take forever to get there. So we got to stop a few times. So we're heading to Big Bend, but on the way, we're stopping in Tombstone, Arizona.
Yes! Which, if you love anything Western, this is the spot where the world's most famous shootout happened at the OK Corral.
We cannot not stop here.
I know.
When we're driving past. It's we've been there a million times, and it's let's just pop in just real quick.
I've purchased so many items to go with I don't dress like a cowboy, but I have a few items that don't fit with my regular outfits. I've got leather belts and I've got cowboy hats that I've purchased from here and shot glasses. I can't help, but I love Tombstone because it's not necessarily even just the actual history of it, but it's the urban legend feel of the town.
Yeah.
It's just
you go you go to Boot Hill Cemetery, and it's these headstones are died murdered in a shootout. And, it's just like, it's like stuff like that where you're just like, ooh, that's gruesome. Cool.
I know. This place really is, I discounted the history of it a little bit because the urban legend is so cool, but the history here really is amazing.
Yeah.
And then you add in the cultural aspect of what Tombstone has become, and it's just such a neat place to be a part of.
Well, we like to go to the shootout. They do a reenactment this last time. So we've done it so many times, but like this last time, they were so good.
Yeah.
Like they are really stepping up their game.
They changed their jokes.
Yeah. I know.
It's so funny. When the good guys come in or talk, you clap and cheer for them. When the bad guys come in and talk, you boo and hiss.
Yep. And then we'll stop for lunch at Big Nose Kate's, which was Wyatt Earp's lady friend.
Big Nose Kate always seems to have live music when we're there.
Uh-huh.
We're very lucky that way. They
Yep.
don't always have it, but every time we've gone in there, it's had live music. It's really fun.
So from Tucson, it's about an hour and 15 minutes or so to get there. So definitely a worthy stop. It's not that far off the main road, but it's super fun. The other thing that you'll pass as you're going through here, like we're driving through Arizona and heading towards New Mexico, you'll also pass by the turnoff to Chiricahua National Monument, which is just right. It's a little bit further off the road. So I wouldn't stop there unless you're just like, we don't mind getting to our lodging late and we have some time. But Tombstone for us is more of the like, yeah, you got to do this. But we're Western through and through.
Yeah.
Right. So we love all that Old West stuff.
I know. It's so funny.
So our aim for this evening of where to stay, you're either going to want to aim for Las Cruces or El Paso. So that's about 4 to 4.5 hours from Tombstone. Remember, we have some driving in this road trip.
Yes.
So by either of those, you're stay in Las Cruces or stay in El Paso as we make just the long journey to Big Bend.
Right.
So that rounds out day 2. Day 3, you're driving to Big Bend. Yay, that's what you're doing. So it's about 6 hours from Las Cruces or El Paso.
Right.
6.5 hours. And so you're just spending your whole morning driving down to Big Bend in some of the most remote landscapes you've probably ever seen in your life.
I know. It's so funny. Your dad, a few years ago, he was trying to figure out how he could retire early. And he got caught up on these, like, they weren't really prepper guys, but they were like, let me show you how to retire early. And it was like, sell everything you have and buy like 1,000 acres in West Texas.
Yeah, I remember that. And he's like looking at like containers, how people are turning those big storage containers into houses. And these preppers are like, yeah, I just buy this container for $5,000 and that's where I live, And he was like, look at this. This looks pretty cool. It's like, actually, have you ever been to West Texas? That sounds terrible.
There's not let's just say we won't be visiting Grandpa very often.
Unless we're going to Big Bend. That's pretty much the only thing that will get me out there.
Exactly.
A lot of people go to Marfa.
That's
which
true.
is like psychedelic, like UFO, interesting place.
Yes.
So
Google, if you don't know what we're talking about, Marfa. It's a cool place to go looking for UFOs.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun. I don't know how to spell it. So
Marfa?
M-A-R-F-A?
Sound it out. Yeah.
Okay. For some reason, I thought that it would be more complicated than that.
PH with the silent G.
Yes.
H.
M-A-R-G-H-F-F-A.
It's just M-A-R-F-A. Just how it sounds.
Okay.
So your day 3, you're spending the 6 hours in the morning driving to Big Bend, and then you have a half a day from there to spend in Big Bend.
Right.
So I recommend just like focusing on the activities that are kind of nearest your lodging, wherever you decide to book that.
Right.
We have full Big Bend episodes of this podcast where we will walk you through like what to do and where to stay and all that stuff. So we're not going to do that here necessarily. But basically, Big Bend is a pretty big national park. It is a lot of driving. You can either kind of stay over by Terlingua.
On the west side.
Which is a good option. Or you can stay in the lodge, which is in the middle in the Chisos Mountains, which is also a good option.
Yeah.
And then you've also got like the Rio Grande Village, which we do stay down there too. Usually we'll kind of move around a little bit because it's a lot of driving.
It is a lot of driving. It's really big. And so if you have more time to spend in this park, you can easily fill it up.
Yeah.
It's not a problem. But yes, there's definite sections and districts of this park and they're completely separate from each other.
Yeah, so go listen to that Exploring Big Bend episode. That will help. So day 3, you have a half a day. Go out for the sunset, wherever that might be. If you want to stay close to your lodging, that's fine. You could do like the window view. If you're up at the lodge, that's a really great place for sunset. Our favorite is the nature trail down by the Rio Grande Village.
Yes.
That's gorgeous.
Oh,
we love
man.
that for sunset.
So good.
So if you're staying down there, that's where we like to go. But a couple different options for sunset. And then you're staying in Big Bend that night. And then your day 4 is a full day in Big Bend.
Right. It's so good.
You can get up for sunrise if you want to do that. You can go to Santa Elena Canyon. That's a definitely, like, do not miss that.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Which is where they filmed Spy Kids 2.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
Which is huge on everybody's list, obviously. But yeah, up above Santa Elena Canyon on the kind of the buttes, I guess, they fought the 2 kids, Junie and Carmen, I think is what their names were. They fought some skeletons, and then a flying pig grabbed
Wow.
Carmen
Oh
and
my
then
gosh.
flew her away.
Interesting.
So that
Okay.
was, story took a real turn right there. But yeah, Santa Elena Canyon, probably one of my favorite parts of the park to actually get in the river a little bit.
It's really pretty. It's so pretty. So definitely go there. You've got the Chisos Mountains, which has some great trails if you're wanting to do a hike.
Especially
That's
during
where
the
I
middle
would
of the
go.
day.
Yeah.
If the lower lands of Big Bend are super hot, the mountains are a great place to retreat to.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's like 10, 15 degrees cooler up in the mountains.
Yeah.
That's why bears can live there, which is
know.
crazy.
Lots of Mexican bears.
Yeah. So just you'll fill your day easily with the cool stuff to do in Big Bend. And then you'll have that full day, another sunset, and then stay in Big Bend again that night. And then for day 5, we're heading to Guadalupe Mountains, but you still have a morning in Big Bend.
Right.
So if there's anything you still wanted to do, if you want to get out for sunrise, this is a great day to do that. But you have another half day here that you can also fill with activities.
So really, you've got a good opportunity to hit all of the different sections.
It's 2 days total by that. Yeah, you've got a half day at the beginning, a full day, and then a half day. It's a pretty good amount of time. I mean, you don't want to cut it short is what you don't want to do because you've already driven 1,000,000 miles to get down here. And so it's like you want to have enough time to actually enjoy what's there.
Yeah.
So that's why don't cut this one short because you'll be sad that you drove all the way down there only for a day just to realize that, like, oh my gosh, like, we need more time. There's so much cool stuff to do. Like, you can go, a lot of people don't know, you can go into Mexico from here and you can go get some really good Mexican food. It's amazing. There's hiking. There's like 4x4 roads you can drive. There's kayaking and stuff in the river, like so much that you can do. You won't run out of activities.
No,
You'll
won't.
likely just like not have enough time to get to everything you want.
I know. This should give you more than a good taste so that you'll want to go back
Yeah.
and spend even more time there.
Yeah. So spend your morning in Big Bend, and then you're driving to Guadalupe Mountains National Park in the middle of the day. That's about a 5-hour drive
Yeah.
because you're driving from the Rio Grande, basically Mexico, up to the Texas-New Mexico border. So you've got some ground to cover there.
Which, to be frank and honest, I couldn't find any movies that were made in Guadalupe Mountain. No movies have been made in Guadalupe Mountains because it's No Country for Old Men. Basically, that was my movie reference. It didn't land as good as I thought it would. That was the final movie that I wanted to say was made in Big Bend.
Oh.
It was a Josh Brolin movie.
Okay.
So good.
It was in Big Bend.
It was, but it introduced me to one of the scariest characters in all of filmdom. His name is Chigger. And he's like this hitman that is hired by some of the cartels to go after Josh Brolin, basically, recoup some of the money that he stole from them. And
Interesting.
he actually was in one of the scenes. This is filmed in Big Bend. The cartel guys see him, and then he has to run away from them, and he swims through the Rio Grande to get away from them, which is pretty cool.
Into Texas.
I'm not sure which side he was on at that
Interesting.
point, but it was filmed in Big Bend. That scene is pretty cool. But yes, we're leaving where films are made to go to a place where nobody ever goes, which is Guadalupe Mountains National Park.
We love Guadalupe Mountains National Park, but if you're on a time crunch trying to see all these places in a week, you don't need that much time in Guadalupe Mountains.
Correct.
So you're getting there, you've driven through the day, you're getting there probably late afternoon. There's some hiking you can do. Stay out again for like sunset so that you don't get those harsh lights and those harsh temperatures.
Mm-hmm.
But we really like the Devil's Hall Trail. McKittrick Canyon is really nice. You can go out to Frijoli Ranch.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a few things you can do right in there. And then stay out for sunset. And then you'll spend the night either there's a campground
Right.
in the park that's very small.
Which is basically a parking lot.
Well, if you're in an RV, it's a parking lot. If you're in a tent, they actually have tent sign.
Exactly.
So we've stayed there several times and it's fine. It's actually kind of nice. Like the RV spots are right next to the Devil's Hall Trail and like the trail to Guadalupe Peak and stuff like that. You're kind of right there in the middle. So
if you want to hike the tallest peak in Texas,
right.
that's a great place to be.
Right. Yeah. So if you feel like you want more time in Guadalupe Mountains than just that half day, then try to stay in the campground if that makes sense for you. Otherwise, you're going to need to drive into basically Carlsbad, New Mexico. That's the nearest town with any type of
amenities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at that point, like if you're staying in Carlsbad that night, it really doesn't make sense to drive back down to Guadalupe Mountains the next morning.
Right.
So keep that in mind. If you're wanting more time at Guadalupe Mountains, then don't probably stay in Carlsbad or just be okay with a longer drive in the morning to get back down there.
I will say, for the purposes of this trip and just having been there, Guadalupe Mountains is way more impressive, like in the evening light.
It is.
It's so pretty.
We'll like go down the hill from the park out to the front of like the approach, I guess, to Guadalupe Mountains.
Yeah.
And watch the sunset from there.
So you can see El Capitan.
Yeah.
Because the mountains kind of come to an end. It's like an abrupt end. And then you have this vast plain off to one side. And so if you go down the road, you get some really beautiful pictures. And it's just a really cool way to experience the sunset.
And the hiking in that area, actually, like, there's trees and stuff. If you're like up by the campground and you're wanting to go to Devil's Hall or something like that, there's trees back in there and you're surrounded by the mountains. So it's really pretty. It's super underrated.
Yeah.
And it's definitely worth another half day in the morning if you stay in that area. I'm just not sure it's worth it if you drive 45 minutes away and then try to get back down there.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
If you want to know a little bit more about what makes the Guadalupe Mountains really cool, you can find some more about it on the fossil episode that we did.
That episode was super cool too. We totally geeked out. So
yeah, we did.
So if you, again, for day 6, like if you stayed in Guadalupe Mountains National Park, then spend another half day that morning. If you stayed in Carlsbad, then just go to Carlsbad Caverns because you're right there. Carlsbad Caverns is awesome.
It's so great. I think it's probably my favorite cave.
It's my favorite cave.
In the world, people. In the world. Carlsbad Caverns is so cool.
So the way you could fill a whole day here, and you don't need a whole day here, but if you're already, if you're not going back down to Guadalupe Mountains and you're already right there, then just spend the whole day there. And what you do is you can it's a self-guided tour through the big room. Is the main thing to do there. And you do need to get a reservation. It's like a specific time that you can enter that you reserve to do that. But I highly recommend, instead of taking the elevator down to tour the big room, hike down the natural entrance.
Oh, yeah.
It's so cool.
You feel the depth of this cave when you do it that way. Because
you're just descending for so long.
Your knees and your feet appreciate how deep you are.
Yeah.
And so therefore you are just like, oh my gosh, I've just hiked down like 800 feet beneath the surface of the earth.
Yeah, it's so cool.
It's way cool. Which brings me to my favorite movie that was filmed at Carlsbad Caverns National Park.
Oh, I thought you said there wasn't any more.
There was no movies at Guadalupe Mountains.
Oh, okay.
Which
What's
makes
at
sense.
Carlsbad? Yeah.
Yes. But Carlsbad Caverns, the original Journey to the Center of the Earth. Not the 2008 Brendan Fraser version, but the 1959 version. Tons of it was filmed actually in the cave.
Interesting.
It's so cool. It's actually kind of hilarious. I know most people probably won't go and like rent the 1959 version now and watch it. But if you go onto IMDb or just Google like the trailer for it, even in the trailer, you can see like it's hilarious. There's even like a duck and everything, but you can there's this duck.
Okay.
I can't remember his name, but there's this duck that goes on the journey with them.
Oh, okay.
But you have all these actors and actresses, and they're wandering around all of the cave formations that we've seen many times as we've gone on the cave. And they show, even in the trailer, they show the King's Palace. And there's some really cool things and like giant scary lizards that, according to today's CGI, are just hilarious. So you should definitely look it up. But almost like the whole trailer, I'm just like, ooh, don't touch that. I'm just seeing like finger oils all over for the cave decorations.
Yeah.
But no, that's a really cool movie that they filmed there. And it's the perfect place to film a movie like that because Carlsbad Caverns is one of the most decorated caves I have ever seen.
It really is astounding.
Yeah.
How many, just like, it's just, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so
and pictures don't do it justice. I mean, you got to walk amongst it. So that's like the top thing I would do is to hike down the natural entrance and then tour the big room. That will take you a half a day. And then from there, if you have more time, you could sign up for a ranger-led tour that goes to some of these other areas of the cave if you want to do that. So options, you can spend as much or as little time as you want in this cave. And they do have elevators to take you in and out if you don't want to hike it.
Right.
We did have to hike out once because the elevators were broken.
Right. That
was
rough.
Really hard. It was
Going
really
down
hard.
is easy.
Yeah.
Coming back up is hard. It's just like the Grand Canyon.
Yeah. We did have to do that. But usually you can like hike down the natural entrance and then you just catch the elevator out from down there. So that's your day 6 is Carlsbad Caverns. You're staying in the town of Carlsbad again that night. And then day 7, we are heading to White Sands National Park. And from Carlsbad, it's about a 3.5-hour drive to get here. So you're spending your morning driving to White Sands. And then from there, you have whatever's left of your day. You have another half a day to hang out in White Sands, which is when we suggest going sand sledding.
Yes.
It's a really good time for that.
What a unique experience. It's so much fun.
It really is.
I love sand sledding. It's just, I don't know. Our kids thought it was such, like, what are we doing, Mom and Dad? What? It was so cool to explain to them. We're going sledding on those giant mounds of sand over there.
And White Sands is so beautiful because they're gypsum dunes. So they really are white. And in fact, when you're sledding, it's kind of disorienting because it's like, I'm not on snow, but it looks like snow. It's sand.
And you expect it to act like snow, but it doesn't act like snow.
No, it doesn't. You go pretty slow. It's not the same as sledding on snow.
Which is why you got to wax your sled really good.
We've seen so many people at White Sands like trying to sled down on like cardboard or like whatever crap they find in their car and stuff. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. It's not like snow.
Yeah, it was so funny. Everybody kind of goes and finds their own dune and then sleds on it. This last time that we were there, it was our little family having a lot of fun on our sleds. And then on the dune over next to us, it was these like 3 or 4 college guys that were on their little dudes road trip. And all they did have was like a cardboard box that they flattened out.
Yeah, it was like a cereal box or something.
And I remember the first time I watched the guy like try to do it, he went all in. And he was like...
The run and jump.
The run and dive on it with your chest and belly on the cardboard. Oof, let me just say, he hit pretty hard.
It is not snow. It does not keep your momentum going. We actually ended up, we let them use our sleds because they didn't look like they were having as much fun
as us. I know, they
us.
left, and then I like chased them down and was like, would you guys like to try this out the proper way? Would you like to do this in a way that won't injure yourself? And then they came back and used our sleds for a while. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. So we'll go sledding for like a couple hours in the afternoon, and then we always make sure that we're in White Sands for sunset. Do not miss the sunset. It is the best.
The way that the light hits the sand is just so cool. It's different than a regular sand dune. The white light, the white sand I don't know, the colors are different.
It looks ethereal. Like the sky oftentimes will turn that pink and light blue, but then up against the white sand that's like glowing, it almost feels like, have I died and gone to heaven?
I know.
That's what it looks like.
The sand kind of takes on the colors of the sunset a little bit too sometimes. And so it's like an extension of the sunset. You're standing on an extension of the sunset. It's so good.
So cool. So make sure you don't skip the sunset that night. And then you'll stay in Alamogordo, which is the town that's right outside of White Sands. Stay there that night. And then day 8, if you can swing it, you can have another half day in White Sands.
Right.
So there are some other like little hiking trails you can do. Like you can hike on the playas and stuff like that. I mean, but really the best thing to do is the sledding in the sunset. So you've already covered that. So if you don't want to go back, you don't need to.
Alamogordo does have that kind of space museum that you can visit as well.
Yeah, Alamogordo has some cool stuff. So if you want to stay in town and do something there, that's fine too. And then from there, we're just working our way back to Tucson so you can catch your flight again. So your afternoon or late morning into afternoon, you're driving the 5 hours back to Tucson and then catching your flight out that day.
Right. And as you drive from White Sands through like Las Cruces and stuff, that's Clint Eastwood country.
Nice.
Which is super fun. He filmed Hang 'em High right on the Rio Grande that goes through Las Cruces. He filmed like that opening scene where the posse comes and hangs him. Wrongly, by the way. And so that's kind of
I love how you're like talking to me like I know what you're talking about. Like I've never seen that. Sorry.
Yes, but he's also another movie that he did that features White Sands itself is called The Mule. It's like one of his more recent films where he's like this 90-year-old guy that drives drugs for the cartels.
Nice.
And there's even in the trailer, you can see he's driving his truck through White Sands.
Interesting.
And so it's really cool. But yeah, the Clint Eastwood country, this is this part of the country. Tucson is John Wayne country, and Las Cruces, White Sands, Alamogordo, that's Clint Eastwood country.
Awesome.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Las Cruces is an interesting place.
They've got that giant Roadrunner sculpture.
I was trying to think of what we've done there. I'm like, well, we've seen the Roadrunner a bunch of times. We usually just go straight through to White Sands. But yeah, so much fun. We've packed it in. I mean, you've hit what? 4, 5 national
parks? Yeah. This is a great...
In 8 days.
I know. I love this road trip. And we've done it a few times, and it is so worth it. This road trip is the perfect way to kind of warm up your hiking muscles again.
Yeah.
And to kind of warm everything up as you come out of winter, you're getting into spring break, want to put your shorts back on, and you see your legs in the sunlight for the first time in like 6 months. You realize how white you've become.
In my case, it's like, oh, I probably better shave before this trip. Got to shave my legs.
Just up to your knees, though.
Yeah.
So, no, this is the perfect way to get started hiking again. And it's so much fun.
So your task for today, we just want to hear from you on which national park of these 5 you're the most excited to see.
Oh, so many good options.
They're all so different.
From caves to massive desert landscapes and cactuses and everything like that. So good.
Cactuses. Ugh. See? He's just throwing out cactuses all over.
I know, I'm sorry.
Cacti, John. Cacti.
This is like the buffalo bison argument that people seem to...
No, that argument is valid. The cactuses, that's just wrong. So, anyway, head over to the Dirt in My Shoes Facebook or Instagram page and let us know which of these 5 national parks you're most excited to see. Or if you've already been to them, let us know which one was your favorite. We would love to hear from you.
Absolutely. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please give us a 5-star review. We really enjoy hearing from you. It does a lot of good for the podcast. But thank you so much for being with us today, and go get some dirt in your shoes.